Lynette from cleverlysimple.com, and today we're going to be making a homemade pound cake using only 4 ingredients. Welcome to my farmhouse. This recipe has been passed down in my family. It is a super simple recipe using only 4 ingredients you probably already have on hand. So we're going to jump in and make this homemade pound cake. Now the first thing you want to do is make sure that you butter and flour your pan. I'm using an Angel food pan today because that's what I have, but I love making this recipe with a bundt pan, which will make it look a little fancier. You could also use a bread pan. Your baking time will change, but you can use any pan that you want using this recipe. Now the easiest way to effectively flour and butter your pan, you don't want to use just cooking spray, because especially if you're using a bundt pan, you want to make sure you get into all those nooks and crannies. So I just take my simple table butter that my son even dug into this morning for his bread, and I take a baggie like this, and I just start to wipe the inside, and I don't have to get any butter on my hands because I am using the baggie. This is a super simple way to get all the butter you need on a nice even layer, especially if you use a bundt pan. Okay, now that I've got that nice even layer, I just take the baggie, fold it over, and we'll put that in the trash. And now I'm just gonna put a little bit of flour into my pan. And I just need probably about 3 or 4 tablespoons worth. It's not really exact science. You just wanna make sure you get a small amount of flour on every single little area. This is kind of a fun thing for the kids to do as well. And a lot of times I do it over the sink because it can make a mess if you're not paying attention. All right, now that I've got this fully floured, I'm gonna bang it into the sink, get the rest of the flour out, and we'll be ready to start making our pound cake batter. We're gonna be using a stand mixer today to make this recipe. You can use a hand mixer if that's what you have on hand, but because of the length of time we're gonna be mixing, it's much easier if you use a stand mixer. So our first step is we're going to add 1 cup of softened butter to our mixing bowl, and to that we're gonna add 1 2/3 cup sugar. This recipe was from my Aunt Pauline, which is more like a great aunt. And my grandma, being the first generation to come from Germany, this was the pound cake they would send over there during World War II. So this recipe has a lot of history in our family. It holds really well because it's such a dense cake, and it's one of those recipes that I love making for different occasions because it's just a special recipe to our family, and I'm really excited to share it today with you. All right, to my stand mixer, I've added my sugar and my butter. And we're gonna mix this for at least a couple minutes on level 4 so that it can fully incorporate. Now that our sugar and butter is creamed, we're going to be adding 5 eggs to this recipe, 1 at a time. Each egg will be in our mixer on level 4 or medium speed for 3 minutes each. And what's really important is that your eggs are room temperature. That takes about 30 minutes on your countertop to get them to room temperature. So like I said, this is gonna be a long time of mixing, which is why back then if they did it by hand, I mean, that's amazing. And this cake is totally worth it. But having a stand mixer makes this recipe much easier. So like I said, 5 eggs at room temperature, 3 minutes each, level 4. It's gonna be amazing. And this is why you only need 4 ingredients for this awesome pound cake. Okay, I just finished my last egg. 15 minutes of beating, but you guys, when you see how fluffy this is, it makes sense. You really want that airy, fluffy quality, and that is what allows it to rise. Now we're just gonna add 2 cups of flour, incorporate it well, and then add to our pan and bake it, and that's it. Now remember, when you measure flour, you always wanna make sure that you are giving it air, meaning that you don't pack it in like you would brown sugar. Flour likes to be aerated to get an accurate measurement. If you're dipping it in there, you're probably going to get more flour than you need, and that's going to alter your baking. Now that I've got my 2 cups of flour, I'm gonna mix this for probably maybe 30 seconds until it's just well covered. Really slow at first because you don't want that flour bouncing out. And then we're gonna add it to our pan. Okay, so I have my floured and buttered pan that I did earlier. And the easiest way to do this is just to scoop in kind of large spoonfuls around. What we're gonna try to do is just even this up in the pan, but we don't wanna bang it around. Then we worked really hard to get all that air into our cake mix by mixing it for that long. It is amazing how light and fluffy this is, and using only 4 ingredients. I mean, I love this for when I need to bring a dessert and I'm low on groceries. And I usually always have like eggs on hand. And I usually have everything I need to bake, like flour and things like that. And so having all of that available is just wonderful because I can just throw together a homemade pound cake. And everybody thinks, wow, you make your own pound cake, but you guys see how easy this is to make. Super, super simple. All right, I'm just gonna kind of smooth this around, and you wanna do the same thing whether you're using a bread pan, which I think this would be 2 bread pans if you were going to make it that way. Or this is great at holiday time when you wanna take gifts. You can use those little mini bread pans and make homemade pound cake on cleverlysimple.com, and I'll leave a link down below. You can also make a homemade raspberry sauce. It's so good with this. All right, now that I have my batter all even, I'm gonna stick it in the oven at 350 degrees Fahrenheit. My oven is preheated for 45 minutes. Your baking time will need to be adjusted if you use a different pan like a bread pan. But for a bundt pan, or as I'm using an Angel food cake pan, it'll take about 45 minutes until a toothpick inserted in the middle comes out clean, and then I'll know it's done. I took our pound cake out of the oven about 10 minutes ago to let it cool while it's in the pan. Now I'm going to flip it onto another cooling mat to cool completely before I sprinkle it with powdered sugar. This is always the scary part. Let me see how I can do it. There we go. Moment of truth. Now this would obviously look a lot cuter if we'd used a bundt pan, but it will taste equally delicious. What I'm gonna do is let this completely cool right here, sprinkle it with some powdered sugar, and then it will be completely ready to serve. This pound cake freezes super well. So if you are making something ahead of time, you can let it completely cool, sprinkle it with powdered sugar, wrap it really well in saran wrap and a plastic bag, and stick it in the freezer and just let it thaw before serving. Like I mentioned earlier, this was a family recipe that has been passed down for generations. Using only 4 ingredients, it's super simple to make with just a little bit of time. Thank you so much for joining me today at the farmhouse. Until next time. Hi, I'm Lynette from cleverlysimple.com. Almost like they're one pasty, for lack of better words. All right, we have fully flat. Flies have no place.